Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, welcome back with me Nadia Ramadhani from 5BF class. In today's presentations, I'm going to explain you about sampling process. But before going further, let us know what is sampling. In some research, that is impossible for us to do experiment directly to a subject of study, it is important to do sampling. Sampling, or we can say that is a process of selecting a representative group from the populations under the study. So it means it is a representative or just a small number from a big number that is impossible to be studied. Okay, so some steps that are required to do sampling are the first one is clearly define the target populations. So the first stage in the sampling process is to clearly define the target populations. As seen in the pictures, from a big populations, we take a smaller target population. Population is commonly related to the number of people living in a particular country. So the purpose of having target populations is to specify the subject or the target of the populations itself. For examples like high school students from that is a subgroup from a biggest populations or the whole population. Or we can say the target population is the total group of individuals from which the samples might be drawn. So from that target populations, at the end we're going to have the sample in our research. Going to the next step, that is selecting sampling frame. What is sampling frame? It is a list of the actual cases from which sample will be drawn. So the sampling frame must be the representative of all the populations. Sampling frame means that we make a list of all possible particular members of the target populations that we are going to interview in our survey, for example. And then the third one is choosing the sampling techniques. So there are two kinds of sampling techniques. The first one is probability or random sampling, and the second one is non-probability or non-random sampling. What are them? Okay, the first one, probability sampling. Probability sampling or random sampling. The first one, this simple random sampling means that we just randomly choose the sample itself. And also the second one is systematic. The second one is stratified or certified random, means that we are randomly, but before that we just stratified or make subgroups of all the from the populations and then randomly choose from that strata or subgroup. And the third one is cluster sampling, means we are we divide the populations into group or clusters and then take a random sample from the cluster itself. And also the fourth one, systematic sampling, means that we just systematically list the populations and then choose it randomly. And also the last one is multi-stage samplings, or in other words, we move from a broad to a narrow samples and then choose the samples. The second sampling technique, that is non-probability sampling. So the first one, quota sampling, means it is a non-random technique. A non-random technique that is chosen based on characteristics that we already set at the first. And also the second one is snowball sampling. It means that we use a few cases to encourage another cases to participate in our research. For example, in a small or in a close nature indigenous community, we just take a few cases from a huge cases. And also the third one is convenience is judgment sampling. We just choose persons that we can warrant inclusive. We can warrant their answers or of the surveys. And also the last one is convenient sampling. It means that we just choose the readily and also easily available persons to be interviewed. Okay, going to the next slide. Strengths and also weaknesses. You just read so from the each step or each sampling technique has its own strengths and also weaknesses. For example, in convenience samplings, less expensive, less time consuming, and also most convenience because it costs uh, less money and so on. And also, but it has also weaknesses. For example, like selections bias mean it's not fair. For example, and also sample are not representative, are not clearly being the representative of the whole population, not recommended by descriptive or casual research, and so on and so on. The Okay, we're just directly going to the next step, that is determining sample size. In order to generalize from a random sample and avoid sampling error or biases, a random sample needs to be of adequate size. So this is the list of confidence level if you choose some some sampling from the populations. For example, like you have 50 populations, and also the margin of error that you are going to have if you choose 45%, for example, or 48, 50, and so on and so on. Okay, so the fifth step is collecting the data. Once the target populations and also sampling frame and also sampling technique is already chosen, sample size have been established. So the next step is collecting all the data, for example, doing the survey and so on. And also the sixth one is assessing response rate. After having all the data, the number of cases agreeing to take part in the study, these cases are taken from an original sample. In reality, most researchers never achieve a 100% response rate. It's okay for you to not having all the response from your survey, for example. But it's also important to reduce the likelihood of sample bias. So at the end, after giving all the survey and also accepting the response, it's time for us to assess the response rate and also collecting and also assessing the data. That's my reference, and I think that's all about my explanations about sampling techniques in doing a research. Thank you very much for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.